If you love urban fiction, I have some recommendations for you. But stick around because I'm also going to be sharing my Black History Month book list with you. My name is Raquel. Welcome and welcome back. The first book I'd like to recommend is called Wait Wait for You by Siobhan Latrice. So if you watched the video before this, you know I just kind of fell in love with The Marriage Favor. So I'm going to be reading this entire series, and you might hear about these books until I'm done. So right now I'm on book number 2. Book number 2 is about my favorite character in book number 1, which is Kari Compton. Kari Compton in book number 1 was a teenage hardhead. In book number 2, he is um he's a rapper, but he's like a popular rapper, like I guess he's sort of up and coming, but he's getting to the top of his game in this one. And then he had this girlfriend named Couture that he was dating. They had this teenage love thing going on, but neither one of them was really ready for the type of love they were trying to have. So in this particular book, he has now rose to stardom. He is super popular. He's got money. He is the man. And Couture, she has graduated college and she is now an attorney. So in the first book, they talked a lot about having a huge family. Something happened with Couture. I do not want to give away what happened in book 1 just because I'm on book 2. Maybe you haven't read book 1. Anyway, something happens, and Couture and he are not able to, or they don't think that they're going to be able to have this huge family that they were thinking about. This makes Couture super insecure, and she runs off. So Couture comes back a few years later, but she comes back with a fiance. Now, let me say this. Whenever I've heard the words ride or die, it always seems to pertain to a woman. Well, in this case, Kari is the ride or die. Kari will do anything for Couture. He wants her to know that he loves her, and he really has to put in the work because he treated her so badly in book 1. But he does everything he needs to do. He is definitely Couture's ride or die. I love this story. I know that the next books are going to be about the other siblings, but I am so hoping to see Kari in the rest of the series. This guy, if he was just a little bit older, if he was a little bit older, he is a ride or die. He loves him some Couture. And don't get me wrong, Couture loves him as well. But they go through the changes, some back and forth, a little, you know, he was a little gangsterish, in book 1. And it hasn't, it's changed, but it hasn't changed because if he needs to, he will. And over Couture, he's going to do whatever. I enjoyed this book. I cannot wait to get into book number 3. So, my recommendation number 2 is going to be um, Unlucky You by Casey Mills. So, Unlucky You is a really good story. I enjoyed it. It is about a guy named Grand who gets out of prison. Grand feels like he was put in prison kind of for no reason. So he's kind of angry. He is still mourning the loss of his child's mother. So he's in mourning, he's grieving. And then he has a son that he's been out of his life for about 5 years. And so he is trying to get to know his son. And like he's got a lot of things going on, and he really just doesn't have time. He wants to get his life back on track, and his son is his number one priority. But we also have a young lady by the name of Sanaya. Sanaya is a premier photographer in her town. She is very, very sought after for her photography skills. She is well known, well connected. And so this guy, he seeks her out to do some photos for him of an underground fight club. And he does not tell her what he wants her to take a picture of because she's such a good photographer that he knows that she'll capture it without him telling her so that it does not look fake. So she goes to the underground fight club and there's this guy there who catches her attention. Like there are different things about him that really just gets her curious. And come to find out, this is her second time meeting Gran. But Gran tells her, hey, you know what? You don't want these problems. This is, yeah, you don't want this. And Sanaya, knowing her background, because she likes bad boys. And anyway, she just wants him for a minute. She's not trying to go the long haul with him. So she pushes up on him and she's persistent about what she wants. And they, wind up having this match, or, it's kind of like their boxing, just not physically. And it is a really good back and forth. I enjoyed it. It was a really good book. But Casey Mills always, for me, always writes a really good book. I've never read a Casey Mills book that I did not enjoy. And then book number 3 for my third recommendation is Back in Blood. Another person who I always enjoy her books is Natisha Rayner. So when I first looked at this, I thought Back in Blood, what does that mean? Like it did not make any sense to me. So Back in Blood is about this it's about this lady who's got this boyfriend, and she and he were together. They had a baby, and prior to him prior to her and him having this baby, he would wild out, like he was just doing his thing. But once she got pregnant, he like changed his whole life. He's like calmed down his gangsterish ways. He don't drink, he don't smoke, because now he's living his life for his baby girl and his fiance. And so one day he gets this information that could potentially undo his entire life, and nobody's safe. Nobody. So there's also this lady. Her name is Lisa. Lisa is one of those people who has mapped out her entire life. And as of this point, everything's going great. So she wants to get married. She wants to have a career. She wants to, get the house, the husband, all these things. And so she's got everything and she's expecting a baby. So everything's falling in line, everything's great until her guy is got this friend that she doesn't like. Because every time they get together, something stupid happens. Like he's always getting him in trouble. And then the thing is, his friend just got out of jail. So anyway, his friend gets out of jail. They decide they're gonna hang out, and he doesn't come home until like the next day. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? And he like now he has lost interest in his fiance's pregnancy. They're supposed to be getting married. There's like no talk of any of that, and it gets crazy because somebody kidnaps Lisa. After he comes home at 4 o'clock in the morning, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon somebody's kidnapped Lisa, and instead of him looking for Lisa, he's just out doing his thing like his pregnant fiance is not missing. This book was so good. It made me emotional. And I like to feel something. I'm not saying that I like to cry. That is not one thing that I like to do. But this book really tugged at my heartstrings. I enjoyed it. I wish it was longer. There is revenge, there's heartbreak, there's love, there's passion, there's friendship. It is so much going on in this book. I enjoyed it. And to say Back in Blood, I don't know this, but after I read the book, I went back and I read the synopsis again, and it said that he's going to get his revenge back in blood. So that's where I think the title came from, getting his revenge back in blood. And so it makes so much sense. Doesn't mean that that's actually what it means. That's just what I think. And I enjoyed this book. It was really good. It wasn't as good. Well, I'm not even going to compare it, but I can say Wait for You. That was a 5 star for sure. For me, anyway. And so now I am going to share with you my Black History Month reading list. So these are the books that I'm going to be reading for Black History Month. I am going to try as best I can to read it before the month of February is over, but some of them are not fiction, they're nonfiction, and I tend to lean a little bit more towards fiction, but I'm going to do the best I can. If I don't finish it in February, I'll just finish it whenever I can, and I'll get back and let you know. So the first one is called Reading While Black. I am not 100% sure I know what this book about. It is nonfiction. Based on the synopsis, it says something like Christianity and blackness. Like, how did Christianity come, how did they get together, Christianity and blackness? And so it just talks about the culture of actually, it talks about different cultures and how they perceive Christianity. So another culture would perceive Christianity from a different standpoint, and also from person to person, Christianity would be perceived differently. And so I find that a bit interesting. The reviews were great. They talked about how good the book is, how insightful it is, how it helped them to understand some things about Christianity. And so I'm really looking forward to reading this book. Then we have a medical apartheid, excuse me, which is about this doctor back in the 1800s. His name was James Harry Sims, or James somebody Sims, and he is this doctor who did all sorts of procedures on enslaved women without anesthesia, and this is how he learned how to, do whatever these procedures are. And I'm gonna put up they have a series of art uh for that goes along with this guy, and I'm gonna put up one of the pictures that somebody, made. I think it's 18 uh, paintings, but I did find one that was super interesting. They actually talk about this particular one in the book. I read like a preview. I'm sorry, I listened to a preview of American Apartheid. I think it gives you about 5 minutes of the book, and the one picture I'm going to put up is what they tell you. This is a very, very heavy book. I could tell just by that 5 minutes, and I can tell that I'm going to need a little minute to get through this one. And then we have We Refuse, which is a book about um, oh my god, it is a book about revolution. Revolution. Okay. So they talk about the revolution in Haiti, like how they got their freedom and slavery in Haiti. They talk about slavery in the United States. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they talk about um, Nat Turner and just some of the revolutions that happened during the time that people were enslaved. And I definitely find that interesting. I'd like to see, what happened, because, like, The only thing that I kind of know about revolutions as far as Nat Turner goes, it seems like whenever they talk about revolutions, it always ends just in that, whoever the leader of the revolution is dies. But I would like a little bit more information, if it's possible, about the revolution. So I think that that's going to be really interesting. And then Don't Let Them Bury My Story, which is by a lady named Viola Ford Fletcher and her grandson, Ike Howard. And so she is a woman who was 17 at the time of the Tulsa race riots. And she is telling her story. She is the last surviving person from the Tulsa race riots. I don't know when this book was written, but it says she was 107 years old. So she is telling her story about what happened that day. And that is very interesting. I think that this is sort of a memoir, more than anything else. So I find that to be super interesting. I'm curious about that. And then we have the warmth of other suns. Now, the funny thing about the warmth of the other suns is I got this book some years ago, and I have never opened the book. I also got the Caste System, which is the second book to it, and I've never opened that book either, but I do know that I want to read it. I believe it is about the Black migration after the Emancipation Proclamation, when people decided that they no longer wanted to live in the South. They were all migrating to the North for a better life. And so that is what Warmth of Other Sun is about. And then we have Standing in the Scratch Line, which is by a man named Guy Johnson. And I think that this is just his account of what happened. Now, this particular book, I really don't know if I think it's fiction, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, but it is about a man, just his experiences with racism. He was in World War I. He experienced racism there with in the military, and then getting out of the military, whatever his occupation was at that time. He experienced racism there, and then it mentions something else, like another place where he's going to be talking about the racism that he experienced. And so that is actually my 6 books that I am going to try and get through in the month of February. Um, so my 3 recommendations, which is Unlucky You by Casey Mills, Back in Blood by Natisha Rayner, and Wait for You by Siobhan Latrice. And then my Black History Month reading list is The Warmth of Other Suns, Standing in the Scratch Line, Reading While Black, We Refuse, and Medical Apartheid. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, see you soon.